I don't even know where to begin on this one. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck. I'm an assistant principal in Southwest Sydney, and I've been doing some videos on my channel here for, I think it's 8-9 months now, who's counting? And lately I've had lots and lots of messages coming through from pre-service teachers. So teachers who are training at the moment at university doing an education degree of some variety. There's so many out there, whether it's primary, secondary. I've just had lots of requests asking for videos about practicum, specifically wanting to know what my pracs were like when I was at uni. So I put a post on social media, on a few of my social media pages, just asking people what they think would be good topics or questions to cover. And it exploded into this massive dialogue between people that were engaging, that were either uni students or experienced teachers or early career teachers or whatever, that wanted to contribute to the conversation. And I don't know if it's really opened up a can of worms, but it's definitely highlighted lots of gaps that exist at the moment between that transition from being the pre-service teacher to being the early career teacher, whether it's casual, employed, full-time, in all those different varieties that you can be in the system. And they're different systems. We've got private, we've got independent, we've got public, and I don't even know where to start on this one. So what I thought I'd do is I'm put all of those ideas together that everyone has been sending me. Thank you for all the personal messages and conversations that I've been having with people. I'm really, really proud of people for, I guess, stepping out of their comfort zone and wanting to engage in the conversation. It's not easy for a lot of people to do that. And a lot of people are really happy to share their opinions and experiences. And some people feel really reserved about doing it, especially on social media. So it's good to have that conversation going. If you're not on any of my social media accounts, they're all in the description below. I've got Pinterest and Insta and Twitter and Facebook. And I always message people back if you message me privately. So please feel free to do that if you've got a question or you want to chat or you just want to let me know that a video was beneficial for you. So I'm putting all of those ideas, lots of ideas, I'm trying to put them as succinctly as possible into, I guess, combined videos, and I'm going to do a series. So I'll do, I think, midweek videos around pre-service teaching, practicum, uni, just that sort of general variety of videos, and then I'll stick to my usual ones on the weekends. So I'm going to try and go back to doing 2 posts a week if I can manage that. So to kick off the conversation though, I thought I'd go with the one that came around a lot, which was people just wanting to know my experiences when I went to university. So I finished high school in 1998. It's 20-year reunion later this year. And I started straight away in 1999. Now, I have to be really upfront about this. I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to do education. I wanted to get into military law, and I studied my backside off to do it, and I missed out by less than a mark on getting into law. Back then it was the UAI. Was it UAI back then? And the whatever the 9 choices, whatever it is you get for university at the time, I had all of them except for one were law degrees, and one was education. And it was a new education degree at the time. It was just called Bachelor of Education Primary. And when I put that in there, it was my safety net choice, and encouraged by my lovely parents, my mum who thought I would make a wonderful teacher, and my dad who said it's great. It's a great career if you want to be a mum. So that was my safety net. And less than half a mark I missed out on getting into law. So I just figured I'd go and do, the 6 months and get my good marks and then transfer out of education and move on into law. Except in our first semester, in our 4th week, we went to our first prac. We had to be there 1 day a week. I can't remember if it was for 6 or 8 weeks, but 1 day a week, every week. And then in the last week, we were there for the entire week, Monday to Friday. And on that prac, I didn't want to go. I loved it. I loved it so much that I wanted to stay. I didn't even think about law anymore. I didn't want to change. I'm still very passionate about the law. I still believe in fighting for people's rights, but I knew I was where I was meant to be. So I stayed, and here I am now 16 years later, still teaching, still loving it, and trying to, I guess, share what works for me with other people. That's what I do now on the side. So if I didn't have that prac, I would have transferred, because the subjects alone that I was studying wasn't enough to engage me. It was being in the classroom with the kids. I was on a kindergarten class with the traditional, more experienced kindergarten teacher that still had a hair in a bun, and we were partnered up. So there were 2 prac teachers in the room at the time. And at first we were told to just observe, interact when asked to. And, you know, it was a typical classroom that I was too tall for, and I made the mistake of wearing a skirt in a kindergarten class. So I learned that lesson quick. And it was great. We just got in, you know, in the afternoons we were picking up pencils, we were cleaning up after them, we stayed behind, we did all those sorts of things. We were part of the planning process. And then when it got a certain amount of the way through, I can't remember how far, we started teaching lessons. And they were lessons that she gave us, handed on a silver platter. Here's the lesson, this is what you are going to do, here's the timings, blah, blah, blah. And then it got to us writing a lesson around whatever we wanted to do. And I specifically remember doing a lesson on time, and I read them the story. It was my own book from when I was a child called Mr. Cuckoo's Clock, and it had a little clock on it that you could spin around and make the times go. And then the follow-up activity was the kids making a clock using the split pins and paper and everything. And I was so proud of myself when they made it. And it was a book that I had when I was a kid, and I felt so connected to it. And then I got good, feedback from the supervising teacher and tips on where I could improve. And following on from that, some of us were invited back to do a speech program with some of those kids. So I got to see those kids continuing throughout the rest of the year by participating in that program. Small school, absolutely eye-opening for me, because my whole schooling life I went through big schools. This whole school was smaller than just my grade was when I was at high school. So that was a bit daunting, but the experience of teaching in itself was amazing. That was my first semester at uni, and so many people dropped out because they realized all of a sudden they didn't want to be a teacher. Can you imagine going longer than an entire semester and going into second semester, doing 4 subjects, and then suddenly realizing you don't want to be a teacher? I can't imagine that process. I don't know how that would work. I don't know how you would function. That would be kind of mind-blowing, but it happens. Second semester was all theory, third semester was theory, and then fourth semester was prac. It was either third or fourth. Every single year we had prac. 4-year degree, every year we had prac. So whether it was third or fourth semester, we had prac. And I went to a slightly bigger school. I was on year 4 this time. I was working with a teacher, I'm pretty sure was an assistant principal as well. Few behavior management things. He gave me, feedback and structure and examples. I guess I kind of fell into just being part of the class straight away. So that was good feedback that I got. And then, it just went on normally the same way that those other ones where, you go through certain days and then you teach lessons and then you try and move on to sessions. And then I remember doing reading groups, and it was very much using his structure and then trying my own. And most of those pracs were tied to a subject of some kind. So an assignment went with it. So, he was pretty good in understanding that I needed to do certain things to fulfill the requirements of my assignment. That was fine. The third year I was there, again, I can't remember if it was, this is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th or 6th semester. I was on prac. I remember this one vividly because there was a stray dog that ended up becoming our family pet after that. Gorgeous animal. Totally off topic though. I had kindergarten again, and this one was a bigger class, and in this class there were a couple of kids with additional needs, and one in particular on the autism spectrum. So I worked with him a lot, and I think this was really what sparked my interest in additional needs, because I was also then taking on special needs electives at this point. So this same thing again, teaching lessons, teaching sessions, branching out to an entire day, and it stagnated over the semester. So in that time, you just keep building confidence, building capacity, linking to feedback, asking what they want, and really trying to read the teacher in the classroom when I was in there, and just follow their instinct. And I know there's people out there that say they get bad mentor teachers. I had nothing but good ones. I had nothing but good experiences. You know, I made sure I said hello to the principal and engaged in the staff room and joined in what people were doing. And that, I guess that benefited me because I was just having those random conversations and getting advice from people constantly. You know, my supervision reports weren't always glowing. There was always areas of feedback, as there should be. There should always be areas of for improvement that you can work on. So, yeah, that was kind of uneventful. I just taught. My next prac was tied to my special needs electives that I did, and I got to go to a behavioural school. So there's 2 teachers in a classroom, 6 kids in a class, things like bars on windows, regular lockdowns, things like separate calm down rooms, and just knowing the backgrounds of the kids can be quite daunting. This definitely opened my eyes, and I really think that every teacher should experience some kind of prac, or at least multiple visits to schools that are not schools that you would generally see on a daily basis. You know, ones that you don't always see shown off in the news, or ones that you've probably never seen in your own education as well. Just to get a glimpse of the variety that's out there, to understand what goes on if you have kids that leave and go to those places, and to know that those teachers, I guess, a lot of people forget they're there, and then a lot of people, you know, are kind of, oh, I don't know how you do it, you're so special. And, you know, everyone's special in their own way, in their own classroom, and doing different things. I do say to myself, hats off to them for doing that, because I think a lot of the things that you know about what those kids are going through would weigh on you. Well, it would weigh on me anyway, especially being a mum. I guess that mum guilt is always hovering at the top of your head. That's always there. So I think that's important, and it's important to just get a variety of experience with those pracs too. So at this point, all the schools that I've been to, I guess, were kind of similar in size. I'd had kindergarten and year 4. I think I had year 2 at one point. I'm trying to remember what that was now. So I'm kind of breezing over these ones though, because my best prac experience was my final prac. So in those years, we had a prac every single year. First year, second year, third year, fourth year, always had pracs, and they always went for a good chunk of that semester. So even if it was only 1 day a week, or if it was for a whole week and then a break and then a whole week, there was always something regular, consistent, and tied to a subject. My last one, which was was it called, the intern semester? I don't even remember. This was so long ago. I'm trying to drag my memory up. I vividly remember this prac though, because it was the best prac that I had. And I remember the teacher that I was with, who I won't mention by name because he is currently a principal of a school, very positively received principal as far as I know. And I was there for, I think it was 9 or 10 weeks. We had to be there, full weeks. So not even at uni really. We went to uni to have our meet and greet, to make sure we knew our expectations, to go through the practicum guidelines. And then we were at the school for 10 weeks straight. And when I met my mentor teacher at the uni, according to the prac handbook, we were meant to go and observe for 2 weeks, I think it was, and then teach lessons and then teach sessions. And then in the last couple of weeks, we would teach days. And when we sat down, he said, as far as I'm concerned, they're yours. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I've taken everything off the walls. I've put all the tables and chairs into the middle of the room. They're yours for 10 weeks. And I could have shut down and cried and panicked and then gone, no, that's not what I meant to do. But this was such a great opportunity. I get to have my own class for 10 weeks. This was awesome. And it must have taken just so much willpower to be able to hand over the class that you've had for 3 terms already, because this was in 4th term, to someone else, and just be trusting like that. And it was great because I could have ownership over what I was doing. I got to learn what it was like to plan for that long term, those long-term goals and those outcomes, and really be, you know, a real teacher, so to speak. And he was always there. It wasn't like he dumped them on me and then just went and did his own thing. He was always there, always present, always paying attention. He always made that evident in the feedback that he gave me. It was very explicit, very clear, very detailed feedback that he gave me. When he had RFF, I was on RFF with him and we would go through everything. He would make sure that I was meeting all the criteria I had to meet, that I was in line with, you know, what the school was working on, and that I followed all of those timetables, and that I had to make sure I was at library when they were meant to be at library, and those things intertwined. I even went on school camp with them to their Year 6 Canberra camp. So this was Year 6 that I had. And it was just so much fun. It was scary. But it was definitely daunting. I definitely had restless nights and questioned what I was doing. But I guess, you know, being chucked in the deep end was just the best experience that I could pull out of it. We had Education Week open day while I was there, and my mum came along, and I remember that this was a school where parents were heavily involved, so tons of parents turned up for open day, and my mum was in there, and one of the other mums went, "Oh, which one's yours?" And she said, "The big one teaching down the front." I had a laugh. I was very proud. But that's really what I think, I guess, made it easier for me to be able to go into full-time teaching, because I had that prac, and then Christmas came, and then I think it was in January or whatever, I got offered a couple of different positions and I went into teaching. And if you've watched some other videos, you know I went to an autism unit, stayed there for a term, and then I went into mainstream. So there wasn't this big gap. Like, your final semester should always just be, you know, plenty of that prac, and I know a lot of universities do that, but if you're someone who's self-regulating your study schedule by doing distance ed, then there could be a chance that you had prac at the beginning of the year, then you've studied, graduated, and then not teaching until later. I think that would be very daunting, especially when, you know when I was at uni as well, I had, like, that first year kind of felt a little bit breezy, because I only had one job, one casual job. I worked at Video Easy, which is where I met my husband. And it wasn't until after that I, we moved out of home, and I needed more jobs to be able to pay bills and stuff. And that kind of meant a bit more stress in terms of getting assignments and stuff done. That first year, though, I just kept thinking, why aren't we just here 9 till 3 and just knocking it all out in one go? And different unis, different ways. So those were my prac experiences. After that, I started teaching, and then in my first 2 years of teaching, I also did my special ed degree, and then after that I went and did my Masters of Education, which is a bit different to Masters of Teaching. From when I applied for my Masters of Education, you had to have an undergrad degree, a postgrad degree, and 2 years of teaching experience in order to do it. You just couldn't apply for it otherwise. So the Master of Teaching, to my understanding, is what goes with another degree that helps you get the educational qualification. So like Bachelor of Arts, Master of Teaching, I think is one of the ones that works. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't been at uni for a while. So I'm going to leave it there as a starter for this conversation. So if you're a pre-service teacher and you haven't seen any of my videos before, feel free to subscribe. I'm going to be doing these ones, like I said, once a week. Midweek I'm going to aim for, so anywhere between Tuesday and Thursday. I've got meetings, and kids have sports and therapy sessions and things as well, so I'll try and get it done within that time frame. And then my normal videos are on the weekend. And if this was beneficial or similar to your prac experiences, hit the thumbs up. It's always good to have feedback. If I've mentioned anything that's changed or incorrect now, please put it in the comments below so that anyone who's following along can see those updates. I'm keen to go back to uni, where my kids are older, and do my PhD and everything. But I guess I want to keep this conversation going because, that's an important part of higher education. If we're going to have people going, from school to uni and to school, there needs to be a nice flow there. It shouldn't be like a big shock to the system when we're doing it. if you're someone who's a mature age student going back to study and you haven't been in a school since, you were at school or your kids were at school, you might get a big shock as to what's going on at the moment. Just the conversations that have come up have definitely emphasized there are gaps, and I don't like those gaps being there. It's the same reason we try and prepare our kids, for high school. We don't like those gaps being there when they transition from one to the other. And I know it's not exactly the same, but I mean, if we can support each other to fill those gaps, then that essentially means that our students are going to be improving as well. Our classes are going to be better. Our schools are going to be better. Personally, I think that should just be on the job training. There was so much theory stuff at uni that I felt was a waste. I could absolutely knock out a literature review like there's no tomorrow, except I never do that on the job. Ever. I'm sure there's other people going, that's right. We don't write essays. That's not what we write on. It's a good skill to have. It's good to have that knowledge behind you as well. But I don't know how we revisit it. I don't know how we begin that conversation. Do we go to the Minister of Education? I really don't know how to work on that at the moment. However, I know that we can do it together. If we have that conversation together, I think that's definitely something we can improve somehow. So I'm aiming to do that with these videos. I'll cover some topics and questions that have been sent through. And if you've got any, add them in the comments, send me a message. I'll put it all into my notes and attempt to cover it as best as I can. Okay, I think I'll leave it with that because I think I've rambled on for about 20 minutes now. I'm going to put my button down here. So if you haven't subscribed yet, you can hover over that and click to subscribe. I'll put one of my other videos up there. I'm not sure what, but something that might be beneficial for a pre-service teacher. And make sure you share with any other pre-service teachers that you think this might benefit. Thanks, guys. Bye.